Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
Peace and blessings, family. Welcome to Sunday Sit with Sisters. I'm back in the building, and today I am so blessed to be joined by Sister Alexis. How you doing, beautiful?
I'm good. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you feeling right now? It feels like spring is outside today, at least today.
It is very springy. I am good. I enjoy the spring weather, so with the exception of allergies, but I like that it's not too hot, but kind of still cold, but transitioning into flowers and gardening and yeah.
So, Alexis, when you were growing up, where are you at in your family dynamics? Are you the oldest? Are you the youngest?
I'm in the middle.
Okay. So how many
I'm
siblings?
in the middle, and siblings that I grew up with immediate, I have 3 brothers, two older than me and 1 younger than me, and I was the only girl, and I'm in the middle.
So was it hard having older brothers, or?
It was, because it's like having multiple dads. Even my younger brother thinks that sometimes he's my dad, but it was hard having brothers. But then I think that now that I'm older, and when it came to dating and things, I felt like I had an upper hand, or kind of like a jump start insight, because I had brothers. So I already knew the do's, the don'ts, the ins and the outs. So I kind of had my own cheat sheet.
When you look back now, because you have 2 children of your own,
I do.
You wish that you have 2 girls. Do you wish they had brothers?
I do. Sometimes I do feel like, dang, they need a brother. My oldest does have a brother. Her and her brother are the same age, and they're pretty close. They share the same dad and different moms, but they are pretty close. And she has my brothers, who are her uncles, that she's really close to as well. But sometimes I wish that she could have a brother that was in her immediate household to just kind of give her the game. And I think it's a different type of support system that brothers provide to young women.
I agree.
It's just different.
So how would you say your adolescence, like say up to in middle school, what do you think Alexis was like?
I think I was very free-spirited, kind of still finding myself, trying to decide, where I was going to go, who I was as a person, as an individual, and kind of just figuring out what to do, what not to do, and just life in itself. for me, junior high was probably like a weird transition period because it was like I didn't really know who I was identity wise. So it was like, I don't know if I want to be with this crowd or that crowd or what crowd is actually good. Finding friends that are of substance or, that'll push and encourage or, whatever I needed at that time. So I was easily accessible to like older cousins or younger cousins or different things like that. My grandparents took me to a church around the corner from our house. So they would do like a lot of traveling activities and different youth programs and different things like that. So that probably kept me a little bit different out of the loop of what was happening. And then I grew up with the neighborhood kids that I had lived with all of my life up until junior high. So it was, it was good. But for this generation now, I think that I feel for them every day only because we didn't have social media. So entertainment for me was going across the street to the park, playing tag or playing Chinese jump rope or flag football or softball, and not necessarily being in an actual sport, but playing the sport how we knew it in the hood. As opposed to this generation where it's like you need this many followers or this many likes if you have an Instagram, or you need to be on TikTok doing this, or know what's the latest dance moves or different things like that. So I wish that kids would be able to just go outside and come home when the street lights came on like I did and feel safe in doing that. But it's not the world we live in anymore. So
wow, that's some good observations, honestly. That folks don't even think about how does social media in particular play a role. Today I was with a bunch of middle school girls at a middle school in Folsom, and when I asked them, well, who are your leaders? Like, what does that look like? So I was explaining to them like a lot of change usually happens with young people, like not like in your 20s, I'm talking about in your teens, you know what I mean? And they was like, we don't really have leaders. We just have influences, but they don't have to do anything.
Right.
I was like, huh? You know what I mean? Like you can be an influencer, but you don't have to, have any characteristics for that. Like, you're not on the hook for nothing.
Right. So these kids are definitely, I feel bad, and I try to, make sure that she's in the right school, around the right people, always busy or doing something positive, just in her life, and letting her know that it's okay to be different from what's going on right now in the world.
Yeah, that is super important.
For sure.
What about your high school years? How would you describe your high school years?
I feel like high school was my transition into my life in reality. It started early, but that was like after. So up until ninth grade, I still had lived with my grandparents, and so I was going to one school. And then in ninth grade, I lost one of my cousins who was very dear to me. He was like a brother to me. So I think after that point of losing him and having to go back to school, and it was just like so many people wanting to know like what happened, or always like in our ear about what happened or talking to us about it, I kind of checked out. So I didn't want to return to school really. And in that transition period, I moved in with my mother. who had been gone for quite some time. So that was like another shock in itself. And then in that transition, I moved schools and went to a totally different school from what I was even used to. And when I went to that school, I was already basically stereotyped based on where I came from. So then I really checked out of school, and I really, I made friends and, people. And my older brother had went to the school, but we hung around two totally different crowds. So it was different. And so in that moment, I was kind of just like, okay, so what's next for me? Like, I want to go to college, but right now, at this point, I'm trying to move out. I need a job. So then I started working, and I was homeschooled, and I worked, and I liked having my own money. And then I moved out on my own, and my life began from there. So I don't feel like I experienced high school, really, when I look back at it now. Like, I went to the junior proms and, the senior balls, but I was like out enjoying like life. I had support groups. I was coming to Academy of Dreams and stuff, but it was like I was still finding myself. And then I felt like my life at that point had started. So
now you have a daughter. Your oldest child is getting ready to go to high school. So how do you think that would, like she's getting ready to experience high school? You don't feel like you have experienced high school.
mm-hmm.
So do you think you're ready to support her in doing that, or will you be journeying with her?
I think that I am, because I always tell her, and I think that me and her relationship is so transparent. I'm very open with her. And so I know that that's an important attribute that she needs from me as her mother, is to be open with her and to support her in whatever it is that she's doing, and for her to feel like she can come to me. And so I cherish that. And so I try to make every effort in ensuring that I'm that person for her. And so with her transitioning to high school, and being open with her, I just tell her, like, this isn't something that I did, but this is something you can do. Right. And you will do. And so I just try to push her and make sure that she knows the importance of high school, and that there are goals and futures beyond just those 4 years, that those 4 years are going to pave the way to your future and to your adulthood and to who you become as an adult. And so if you put those 4 years and, you actually accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish, not only as a person, but for society, then you're going to do good.
Right on.
And not saying that, you can't do good without, doing high school, but it'll make your life a lot harder.
Right on, right on. So let me ask you, you said that you didn't, at least for the first years of your life, if you will, until your freshman year, you wasn't with your mom per se, or living with your mom. Mm-hmm. How has that relationship with your mom, how has that reflected on your relationship with your daughter?
It just made me want to be better as a mother. It made me want to be everything that I didn't have and everything that I felt like I lacked. And so I pride myself into making sure that every day if I don't see her, to tell her that I'm texting her, I love you, I'm proud of you, you're amazing, you're the best thing that has ever happened to me. And so now that I'm older and I have my own child, the relationship with my mom has shifted. And of course, I'm accepting of it. And she is a great grandmother to her granddaughter. And she's a good mom. But I make sure that for me and for my child, that I am, that I want her to be like my mom was my biggest fan.
Right on. That's so true. How did you repair your relationship with your mom? And I only ask these questions, I think there's a lot of people out there, adults and kids alike, who struggle in those areas, but sometimes you can never see the end. You always think it is where you are, but there's all of these other endings to people's relationships, and we just never get to hear about it. How did you work on repairing it?
I think for me, it was about number one, accepting that it is what it is at this point. It happens accepting it and acknowledging that, you know, I may have, could have been, may have been because of the circumstances, but I'm not. And then forgiving not only her, but forgiving myself for feeling some of the ways that I felt towards her when I was growing up. And then now that I have my own child, it was just accepting that you're there for my child more than anybody could ever be. So I appreciate that, and I need that. And so I'm good with it.
Right on. That's beautiful. I think sometimes people need to hear that. You know what I'm saying? Like there's always these gaps in our community and we just never get to talk about it. Like, what is it like? I seen your mom with your daughter. Oh my God. Like she adores your baby. And she also adores you. Like it takes, I hope I get a chance to talk with her soon, but I think that's something we never talk about. You know what I mean? Like how do people pick up and fix whatever happened? You know what I mean?
I think it's a benefit to where we are now as adults and just the resources that I have access to and some of the things that I have taken on in life. And just we've done several trauma-informed trainings and different things like that, and just acknowledging that there are generational curses, and it may not have started at my mom. It may have started at my grandma.
Right.
And so, or it may have started from my great-grandma. And so just it being able to acknowledge that it didn't stem from this, it could have stemmed from higher than that. And that I can't reach. It's unattainable at this point because great grandma was long gone.
Right.
And so just acknowledging that I have the opportunity to fix it right here and right now, and to break anything that may transpire future, I'm going to be able to, I'm going to do that.
Right on. Right on. So how did you, so you finished your high school and then did you like fall in love with somebody? Like how we get to my baby?
Yeah. So, well, throughout high school, me and her dad were never like officially official. We were kind of like, just like, I had this huge crush on this man and Ben, but it was just like play. It was like nothing intimate, nothing sexual, none of that until I got older. And then I was like, you know what? You've been around in my life for many years. We both know what it is. We have an understanding of what it is. Let's like make it official. And it just seems like as soon as we made it official, Kamea came. And I was distraught. When I found out I was pregnant, I was like, oh my God, I was 20 years old. I had 2 jobs. I had my own house already for like 3 years now. I was financially stable. Everything that you need to bring the child into this world, I had, but it was just the fact that, oh my God, I'm about to be a mom. Like this thing is serious. And so I was super nervous, very nervous.
So what did you do? Like, did you tell your mom right away?
I called my mom, was the first person that I called. I called my mom, and she was overly joyed, overly excited. And I was like bawling my eyes out. And she was like, why are you crying? And I was like, I'm about to have a baby. And she was like, it's okay. And I was like, I'm not ready. And then from there, I called my aunt, was the next person. And she was like, let's do this. Like, we're here now, let's do this. And the person that I had to tell that probably was the hardest person to tell was my grandparents. And I told my grandpa first, and he was happy. And he was like, I can't wait, basically. He had already gotten to his stages where he was very dependent on other people, and he was getting sicker and sicker and older. So when I told him, he was overjoyed, but I think he just felt like at least I'm gonna be able to experience this before the end of my road, you know. My grandma, however, she told me I was stupid. She said that I was crazy. She didn't understand why, and that I'm dumb. Basically, she was like, "You're absolutely dumb. You're stupid." And I was like devastated after that. I was like, see, I told you guys this isn't right. And it made me cry more. And then I remember going into my grandpa's room, and I just laid in his bed, and I just cried. And he was like, don't worry about it, daughter, you'll be all right. And like the next day or something, my grandma called me and she was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. I just wish it would have been different. And so, you know, that was her own perspective, her own opinion and her own way of how she thought it would go. And so I had to accept it. But after a while, I got over it and yeah, had my daughter.
So what was your delivery like? Like, did you do the rods and all that stuff before, or birth classes and all that stuff, or no?
So I probably was fortunate in my pregnancy only because I feel like I kind of came from the birthing project at that time. So I had a lot of support systems within. But in the delivery room was my grandma, my two older brothers, my mom, and my two aunts. And it was very calm, very intimate. I didn't have any lights on. I was playing music the entire time. I did it natural. I didn't have any medicine. When I arrived to the hospital, I was already 5.5 centimeters. And so labor happened not quick, but it progressed. Kamea, however, was very stubborn. And so when I was pushing her out after 3 hours and 45 minutes of trying to push her, and then she would go back in, and then she ended up going back in and flipping around. So then I had to have an emergency C-section after all of that. So it was a lot. But
how much did she weigh?
8 pounds, 4 ounces.
Oh, that's a very good birth weight.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you first held your daughter, what did you think?
I remember I cried because it was so unreal. And it was like, oh my God, I created this little human being who right now looks like a glowworm, but she's mine. I have an opportunity to make a difference and build basically what I feel like is a phenomenal woman, and have input in making sure that that happens.
Right on, right on. What about her father? Was he able to be there, or?
No, he wasn't there. Like probably right before I was due, I kind of, it was a transition period where I found out that Kamea's brother was coming into the world at the same time as her, basically. So he was born in February, Kamea was born in October. And so with that being said, I just felt like I had zero tolerance to deal with the drama at that point, because I was like, we made it this far. You waited all these years and now you want to mess up. I just can't even deal with it. So I left him. He ended up going to jail. And so at the time that I gave birth to her, he was locked up. But I remember calling his mom and his sister, and they ended up coming to the hospital, and were overjoyed because Kamea looks identical to her dad. People think she looks like me because she's always with me, but when she's with them, she looks like them. So they were overjoyed. And then when he did get out, he seen her, and that's a relationship that they battle with. He's there, he's not there, he's but I think that him being in her life has a lot to do with me and him, and so he lets that affect his relationship with her, which is unfortunate. But
right. What was your relationship like with your father?
With my father? So with my father, I was a daddy's girl. Nobody could tell me anything about my dad. He was incarcerated for some time, but then he got out and his life wasn't the best. And so he didn't really, when he got out, he kind of just let us stay with my grandparents. He didn't really fight to get us into a household or anything like that. But I feel like it's because he didn't have that himself. And so he couldn't give us anything that he didn't have himself. But one thing about my dad that I absolutely admire is the relationship I have with Kamea. My dad was transparent. So if there was something that he could or couldn't do, he made sure to let us know. And no matter what he had, he would give us his last. And so he was just like, we knew that he loved us. His love was apparent for us. And although he didn't have a lot, he made sure that we knew that he loved us. And I get emotional because my dad passed away like 2020. And so I think sometimes I still fight with accepting the fact that he's not here. And that was probably because I didn't really have an opportunity to mourn, because I had to be the person to make sure that he got buried, or make sure that the funeral went on, or, different things like that. And so some days it's hard to face reality that he is passed away.
Are there any things that you do to honor your dad that's like in the spirit of him, or have you done anything like that?
I think that, I put him on a necklace, so I wear this necklace every day. But as far as like honoring him, we celebrated his birthday. I had a gathering. We, lit candles, and just everybody came out or whatever. But nothing like, I have a little area where it's all his pictures, his ashes are, and different things like that. So I have that. But
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Like you're honoring his memory.
Yeah, for sure.
I always feel like part of the healing and generational work, as that some people call it, is knowing people's story. Because that's part of why things kind of spiral the way they do, that we'll never know people's story. Sometimes we live their story because we don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Or sometimes you end up with that same energy because you don't even know why they had that energy in the first place.
Right.
So it's just something about knowing people's stories that kind of help you and helps them as well. You know what I mean? It helps you to understand their thought process, like why sometimes they couldn't give you the things that they wanted to give you, but they just didn't know how to do it, or they get the help they needed. You know what I mean? So they could have been, like he could have got all of y'all in the same house, but maybe he just didn't know how to do it. Because it seemed like nothing for us. Like, but we come at a different time. Like your time here is a little different, even though, you know what I mean? Like we have more resources now than we've ever had. We never had as many resources.
And so those were things that I had to accept, that, a lot of people would always say like, well, your dad wasn't anything. He didn't come get you, or he didn't do this for you, or he didn't do that for you. But no matter what, like my dad was calling me every day.
Right on.
To the point where sometimes I'd be like, Dad, what do you want? I just talked to you. But I just want to tell you I love you. Like that was him. That was who he was. Like, even with my daughter, like he would call and just be like, Papa, I love you. Grandpa, I love you. So it's like, although my dad didn't have much, my dad was genuine, and you knew that he loved you.
Right on. That's beautiful in itself, honestly. Do you feel like your attraction to Kamea's dad, was that any reflection of your dad? Did he have any of your dad's characteristics, or anything that you felt that could have or I don't know. I always ask that question.
No. Okay. No. My husband now does, though.
Okay. So how did you meet the husband you have now?
Through my brother. Him and my brother are really good friends, and he would always like send messages from my brother to me, and reach out, or be there for my brother, do things for my brother. And I would never pay him any attention. Like when I seen him or anything, I would just be like, this fool, hey. And then eventually I was talking to my brother one night, and he was like, he swears like he's like head over heels in love with you. Like, and I'm like, he doesn't even know me. He doesn't know me at all. And my brother was like, well, he knows you because I talk about you all the time. And I'm like, he don't know me though. And then he reached out, and then from there it was history.
So how did you know he was the one? Like he didn't know you. And so how did you know that he was the one?
Um, I think that um, like my father, him being a genuine person and him just knowing that I may not have much to offer or much to give or, you know, much of whatever, but me as a person's genuine, my love is genuine. There was just things that he would say or he would do, and it was just like, I can't even hide the fact that you're just like not perfect, but you like perfect for me. Like,
Right
you
on.
know, so um he became my best friend, and yeah.
So y'all did have like how long did it take for him to get to know who you are? How long did that take?
Um I feel like I wouldn't say things happen fast, but um we dated, it was about a year, a little over a year. And then after that year, I remember him saying, I need to talk to your dad. And I was like, for what? And he was like, I just have to ask him something. And so he was like, can you give me your dad's number? And I was like, yeah. And so he called my dad, and I guess they talked, and he told my dad, like, I want to marry her. And my
Wow.
dad was like, no. My dad's super gangster, super like Snoop Dogg. So my dad's like, you're not going to marry my daughter, because if something happens to you and her and you do something wrong, I'm going to kill you. Straight up.
I feel
Straight up, crib. It's my dad's crib. So this is how he's talking to me. Straight up. It's going to go down. And so he was like, no, I don't have any intentions. I feel like she deserves the world, and whatever it takes for me to give it to her, I'm willing to go through it and give it to her. Um, and so then I guess after he talked to my dad, he called my brothers. And so my dad called me and told me that he had spoke to him, and I was like, oh, okay, what you guys talked about? He told me what they talked about, and I was like, interesting. Then my brothers called me and was like, we just talked to her, you know, Javier. And I'm like, interesting. What you guys talk about? And he was like, well, you know, he wants to pursue a future with you. And I was like, we're together. And he was like, no, like he wants to marry you. And when I was younger, I wouldn't say that I didn't feel like I would ever get married, but I just felt like I was always like a homegirl. And that's probably because I have brothers. So it was like I was always like a homegirl. So I never thought that I would like fall in love with, you know, a man. And
Mhm.
so after that, he ended up proposing in April, and then we got married in December.
Wow. Wow. So what was the proposal like?
He wrote a letter. So he's incarcerated in addition to that. So everything's a little bit weird. But he wrote a letter. And then with the letter, it was almost like not really a scavenger hunt, but a scavenger hunt. So the letter told me to go somewhere. And it was to a jewelry store. And when I got to the jewelry store, I gave them the note that I was supposed to give them. It was like a little card. And I handed it to the guy, and then this other guy comes out from the back, and he had a box. And when he opened the box, inside the box it said, will you marry me? And then it was a ring. It was
Oh,
like scavenger. It's kind of weird. But yeah.
that's cute though. I think
Yeah.
that was his way of being creative.
Yeah,
Like
for
he
sure.
gave some real thought to it. You know what I mean?
And he didn't want anyone else to do it for me, because he said he didn't want anybody to take away from my moment. So
Wow. That's
he thinks
beautiful.
like that. He's a thinker.
So what was your wedding like?
So we haven't had like a big wedding, but the day that I went in to marry him, um, it was a lot. I think every obstacle that could have happened that day happened. At first I got ready and I had on a dress and I had on shoes, I did my hair, I did everything. And so I got there and they weren't calling my name and I was like, what's going on? And then the lady comes out and she goes, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you today you're not going to be able to get married. And I was like, well, how come nobody called me? Like, I'm coming from Sacramento to here, 7 hours away. Nobody cared to call me. And she was like, we don't have to. And I was like, okay. So I was like devastated. And then in that moment, I think of him waiting, he ended up going to use the phone. And so he called me and I was like, well, they won't let me in. They, said we couldn't get married. So he's like, absolutely not. Like, he has zero tolerance when it comes to people telling him he can't do something. So he goes in and talks to the captain or whatever and tells them the situation. And the captain's like, that's not right. You're not supposed to do that. And then they call me. But I had already left and went to the hotel that I was staying at because my daughter needed to use the bathroom. And I had changed my clothes at that time. And so the captain calls me and I go, yes, this is her. And he goes, can you make it back here within 15 minutes? And I was like, sure. And he was like, all right, I'll be waiting for you outside. And so when I got there, the captain was waiting and he took me back. But I already had changed. So I had on sweats.
That's all right.
I had on a sweatsuit, but whatever. It happened.
That's all right. At least y'all got married, man.
Yeah, and then they gave us opportunity to exchange vows and different things like that. And so, God willing, he should be out by the end of the year, and then we'll plan for a big wedding, probably more of a wedding reception for our family to be able to.
Beautiful. So what is it like to be a wife? Because you're a mother and now you're a wife.
It's different.
What's different?
Because I can't only think about me. I have to consider all aspects of everybody's feelings and emotions and different things like that. I'm very fortunate though to have him because he supports the girls like no other. Like times where I'm like, absolutely not. He's like, you gotta hear them out. Very patient when I'm not. So we're like total opposites in some things, but it's like for the better because things that I need to be, he is. Things that he needs to be, I am. So we balance each other very well. But I do appreciate being married just because you have that other person. So sometimes where I feel like there needs to be two of me, I have two of me. I have the support, I have, the push, the appreciation, and so I like it.
Have y'all talked about having any more children?
We have. And that's when we got blessed with Azuri. I guess I wasn't specific with my prayer when I said I want another child. But we have. It's in the works. I want a boy. I want a little boy. So if I could get guaranteed a little boy, then I feel like I'll be more willing. But I know I can't be choosy.
So tell us the story of your second daughter, if you can. So I think it's a beautiful story to me.
So, growing up, once I lived with my mom took custody of one of her clients' children. She was the transportation driver for the birthing project, and she met this woman, and then the woman had a daughter, and she wasn't able to care for her daughter at the time, so my mom took on responsibility and basically raised her. So we grew up with knowing her as our god sister. Mm-hmm. And then eventually she ended up going back to her mom, and life happened, different circumstance, and she ended up getting pregnant. And so when she had her daughter, who's Missouri, and CPS stepped in and took her away because she was born in some unfortunate situations and circumstances. And so she wouldn't go into the system. I first talked it over with my husband, where I was like, I cannot, because I had took custody of my brother and sister at one point, my dad's other kids. And so I knew how hard it was going to be to care for a child that was born in those circumstances, who was born post-tox and would be withdrawing and, you know, would need some special care because of the drugs that were in her system. So I was like, I don't know that I have the patience for that. And he, you know, we talked about it, and he was like, I think you should do it. She needs you. And so my mom and everybody was like, please. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And so I got custody of Missouri, who's now, well, going to be 2 years old. And I've had her since birth.
Wow. That's just beautiful. She looked like she came out of you, though.
Everybody thinks that.
She's so adorable.
Everybody thinks that. Everybody's always like, she looks just like you, but no. And the older she gets, like now, she my daughter is Sissy to her. She has her days where some days I'm like no name, and then most recent days I'm mom. She calls my husband dad. So yeah. Who
knew that your mom working at the birthing project
right
would lead to her daughter having another child? You understand what I'm saying? Like, you just never know, like, how beautiful that is. You think I'm going to do my job. I'm going to make sure this person gets to her doctor's appointment. It's so much deeper than just a ride to the clinic.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like this has implications in the future. You have no idea that you really are making family. Like forever. You know what I mean? So what are you doing now for work?
So now I work for Her Health First, which I always call it a spinoff of the birthing project. And when we get people, I try to tell them, like, this started deeper than just this. But I work for Her Health First, and I'm our outreach enrollment specialist, also the on-site manager for the Fruit Ridge Community Collaborative, which is the collaborative with currently 21 nonprofit organizations are working out of. And so in my job, I work specifically for Black Mothers United, and we resource African American women who are 30 weeks less or pregnant. In Sacramento, just with the disparities that we're faced with right now, and trying to aid them and figure out why our babies and our women are dying faster than any other race in the nation, and just making sure that they have the support and the resources that they need to have a successful, not only pregnancy, but just a successful life after pregnancy, and, you know, the postpartum care, and just being able to appreciate being a Black mom.
What are some of the struggles you see with that?
I
think Black mothers are facing.
Black mothers they face a bunch of different things. For one, the level of care that they receive from hospitals is not the same as other races. The resources that they receive from the community is not the same as other races. The support, the education, there's a number of things. Lactation support, doula care. I feel like education is the biggest one, though, because I feel like if people knew what was out there, or what we're entitled to, or what we have resources to get, then a lot of things, you know, could be better. But just the lack of education. My mom working in prenatal care, and then after my brother, whose name is Jesse, being in the delivery room with me, he's now a doula in Oakland. And so he does the doula work too. We always say we just need to open a prenatal home now,
Yeah.
since we have so many of us. But yeah, I just working in where I'm at now, I'm finding peace with life. Prior to working in the nonprofit world, I worked corporate. So I worked 10 years for Marriott, and I dedicated my all to them. And when COVID happened, I was dismissed with no
Wow.
anything, no empathy, no sympathy, no anything. I was dismissed over the phone. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it was bad. And so I told myself that I would never allow myself to give so much of myself and take away from, like me being at that job. I was always at work. I wasn't able to, be interactive with Kamea growing up or different things like that. And so I told myself when I got this job that that could never happen again. And so I find reward in being able to assist people in ensuring that they have the resources, the education, the support, the love that they need to be able to make our community a better community. I
Right.
wouldn't say a better world. I like to say our community a better community, because I feel like if we dig within our community, then we can make great people, and then
Mhm.
those people eventually will have our own world.
Right on. Right on. What words of advice would you give to young mothers out there that's trying to find their way?
Take one day at a time. Don't beat yourself up, that you never know what others are going through, and that somebody out there has a story just like you. And just to live every day like for yourself and for your child. And um I think having some sort of faith-based substance is always good. I'm heavily involved in our church, and I feel like me having some sort of faith base is rewarding at the end, because you find peace in knowing that there is a higher power.
Right on. I would make sure before I forget, how does your faith play a part in your life? Like raising your daughter, where you work at, how, does that play a part in that in your life?
Well, for me, I'm happy with where my daughter's relationship is with God now, because she's finding her own self. And she's a praise dancer at the church. She's also works hand in hand with the pastor. And so I feel like her being able to have that faith base is making sure that she doesn't make some of the choices that other young women are faced with every day, because she knows that there's consequences to different things. So I
Mhm.
almost feel like there's like some sort of conviction when it comes to different things that other kids may be faced with, that she knows that it's not right, and she knows right from wrong. In my life, just being able to acknowledge a higher power is the same, just the conviction and just knowing and the reassurance that everything is going to be okay, and structure, and being able to pray and just know that there's support, that things will make a way, of essentially, if I feel like I'm lacking in an area, or I feel like I don't have that sort of substance, then it's like I have something else to grab onto or grab hold to other than my own strength.
Right on. Right on. Thank you for that. I just want to ask you about that because I know that is very much, even with your mom uh, being with her, faith was a big part of who she was. You know what I mean? And so, normally, do you feel like your generation, how do you think your generation is doing?
Horrible.
Wow. Why you say horrible?
I mean, because I honestly, it saddens me. Like, I run into people that I went to school with that are either on drugs, dead, lost, or uncertain. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but the majority of the people that I see, and it's probably filled with being in Sacramento and just so close-knit that Sacramento is so small, you see all these things, but I just feel like the kids that my kid is growing up with are offsprings of the people that I went to school with. So it saddens me sometimes when I see little girls meeting up at different places to fight and all that. And I'm like, I know their mom. And then it's like, then I go back to their mom and I'm like, but you were doing that. So it's like, I feel like we got stuck in a cycle where we weren't trying to break. And then in our generation, I feel like some heavier drugs hit us. I know that like when my parents were growing up, it was probably like the crack epidemic came and the crack era came. But these drugs that are out here now are way heavier than crack. And so that came on our generation. And I feel like some people have just lost themselves in that. And they just don't know.
Well, that's why I asked you, because you know that's how old are you now, Alexis?
34. I'll be 35
my
in
God.
October.
Well, Shannon said she was 37. I was like, what? Like, this is impossible. Oh my God. So now, yeah. So that's different from you being 15. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, oh God. Whew. Okay. I'm still very hopeful, but I do feel like when we don't, I don't know, I think sometimes as adults or older adults, instead of us admitting where even if we didn't know something and now we do know, it's okay to admit that you didn't know something, but it's not okay for us to contribute to things being the same.
Right.
That's where I struggle with. It's like, girl, I don't want to hear that. Just tell these kids the truth, because they already know. Like, this is going to help them get out of it. You know what I mean? But if we act like what you did was, that's all I knew. Dude, look, but you know something else now.
But you know something now. So let's make a difference. And like the sex trafficking that's going on and the kids coming up missing, and it's just sad. It's sad. Because that, I mean, not that it wasn't a big thing when we were growing up, because it was, but it's almost like the people in our generation are like the ringleaders of everything going on in that aspect now. So it's so sad because it's like, it's almost like a continuing cycle, especially with being in Sacramento, which I'm very thankful that, I'm thankful that I had the people in my life to help me and educate me in ways that maybe I couldn't educate myself, so that I can be a better mom to my daughter, so that she is not another statistic or stereotype or, anything like that. And so as long as I have to keep her into something different, whether that be church or whatever, I will push her to be better. I'm very thankful. She is an honor roll student. She has goals to go to an HBCU. She would love to be an OBGYN, so the prenatal care continues.
I can see her doing all that.
Yeah, so I'm very grateful and thankful that, if I can't make a difference in a million lives, I can at least make a difference in hers.
But that's what makes me feel so hopeful for the future. Like, no matter what your story is, and if you didn't get a chance to do stuff, look at all the amazing things you're doing with your daughter. Just because maybe you don't start off with what you thought you should have had, don't mean you have to get the next generation what you had.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you get up the game. I always say the biggest blessing is you getting here, especially when we live in a time when you have options.
Right.
Like, the fact that you made it here, it's like, wow, this is your opportunity. You know what I mean? To contribute to the world.
Right.
Get into your
to
base.
make it right. It's your second chance.
Right. That is so true. So thank you so much. I think you're amazing.
Thank
amazing.
you.
So, any parting words?
No, just thank you. Thank you for just being a teacher, a mentor, a person to look up to, a phenomenal woman, and just ensuring that people stay woke and educated and making sure that we know and being our voice. I believe that you are amazing in everything that you do, and I appreciate you tremendously.
Somebody told me once when people give you compliments, it's really that you get to see that because I'm just your reflection.
Aw.
You cannot see in me what is not true for you. So thank you. All right, family. I'll be back next Sunday with another interview. Don't go anywhere. Let me just end this up. So I'll see y'all next Sunday. Have a great day.
Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.